All right, hey guys, just another part of the projects that we're doing. A little overview of some of the cavity nesting owl work, and I'm with Steve Hiro, who's been with us 29 years now as a volunteer. You guys are probably all pretty familiar with Steve, retired heart surgeon, and once he officially retired, now a full-time volunteer for the Owl Institute, and been on many projects. So Steve monitors very closely, particularly the pygmy owls, but also the saw-whet owls during the nesting season as well. So behind us here, Steve and I, you'll see this snag, and this is a snag that Steve found with a saw-whet owl nesting in it. And so Steve, just tell us how you went about finding it.
So, in terms of cavity nesting owls, we start with the pygmies, usually mid to late February, and we have a special survey technique that we use for them. Go out, usually for me it's early in the morning, and calling and listening and trying to mark areas that we have consistent birds calling back or calling on there spontaneously. And then in terms of the saw-whets, we usually wait till maybe late May or late March, early April, mostly because most of the ability to find saw-whets are finding females in cavities. We hardly ever see the male. We hear the male. That's what sort of zeroes us into where we might find a cavity with a female in the cavity. But what we start off with is just listening. Sometimes when we're out with pygmies, we listen, and as the night is ending, especially if you're out first thing in the morning, the night is ending. You hear the last call of the saw-whet, and you sort of pay attention to where that is, and then you start hearing the first call of the pygmy. And so you're able to get both species the same morning sometimes. So we mark where we've consistently heard males calling, that long monotonous truck backing up call.
What do you mean?
Correct.
Okay.
You've all heard that at the construction site. Um, and then around late March or early April, we start looking for the female in the cavity, and often where the male has consistently called, we find the cavity and we find the female there. So the way we go about is sort of tromp around and look for cavities. The saw-whets tend to like a little bit bigger cavity than the pygmies, something maybe that a pileated woodpecker has made, or maybe a flicker, but something a little bit bigger, maybe around that round or so, as opposed to the pygmies, which like something about that tight. So, and then we find the cavities, and then we'll scratch on the tree. Typically, in most cases, if the female is in the cavity on a nest, she'll look out, concerned about there may be some predation, whereas the pygmy owls typically don't look out, although we're trying to sort that out. We think that maybe the pygmies in the lower nest might look out, and the pygmies in the higher nest may feel safer and don't look out, so we're trying to sort that out in terms of owls looking out of cavities.
What would be potential predators?
Well, for the pygmies, I guess not much, because you can't get in the cavity that small. They can barely get in it. So we've seen woodpeckers climb up the tree towards not that there would be a predator, but often that'll generate nest defense from the male or the female, whacking the
Cool, I like that.
whacking the female or the predator or the woodpecker. Also, red squirrels. We just heard one there. They tend to be at least curious, if not interested. And I'm not sure there's much else that could get into that cavity that would be a risk. So
How about for saw-whets?
the saw-whets.
Or boreal, for that matter, other cavity nesters.
Yeah, I guess it'd be like
With
martins
big
and
holes.
fishers and things like that. Maybe minks and raccoons. I don't know if raccoons would do that or not, but any of those larger mammals that like eggs and like chicks, perhaps.
Right.
Yeah,
So that would be a reason to look out if you're saw-whet. If you hear something hitching up a tree, you're like, okay, what's that?
probably
And whereas a pygmy
probably
is
a
safer.
good idea. Yeah.
Cool. How
But-
many nests have you found of both of those species now? Over
Oh,
the years? Collectively, us.
Well,
you know.
collectively, I would say, including Denver's earlier work, I've been doing it for maybe, this will be my 14th year, I think.
Since you retired.
Well, 14th year since I've sort of focused more on the cavity nesting owls. But the entire experience, we have probably 60 or more saw-whet nests and upwards of 55 pygmy nests.
And those are all natural sites.
All natural sites.
Yeah,
Yes.
you know, because most information on these guys comes from nest box studies.
Right.
So pretty impressive to find that many natural sites. And that
Right.
just kind of emphasizes all the hard work that goes into it, from the surveys to walking through the woods to banging on the snags to locating birds in nests.
Right. It's all about being out, as Denver said from the very beginning, and I think nothing could be truer. This was just fortuitous. You went into this snag, and it happens to have an owl in it. So it's all about being out.
And so when we're driving down the road, just going from point A to point B anytime, and if Steve's in the car and he sees a snag somewhere in the distance on a hillside,
Stop.
he says, stop, I have to go bang. And I go, really? And he says, so he'll stop and Steve will hustle whatever it takes. He'll hustle up a hill, down a hill, and scratch the tree, just hoping for a response.
I got to say, it never worked though. It's never worked, but it's something that gnaws at you.
So again, it goes back to what Steve was saying, that there's a protocol that you use to increase your chances of finding the nest. And that starts early in the season when the owls are courting, whether you can call it songs or calls, because, you know, there's songs of saw-whet, toot, Steve will mark it, or pygmy owl. He'll mark the consistency, go in and start looking for the snags, knowing what snags might be potentials, and then try to locate nests, and then from there we'll try to capture adults and bands. So there's a process to it, although once in a while you kind of randomly luck into something.
Yeah, that's right. There are a lot of stories about lucking into stuff, but you have to be out. You can't be at your desk. You can't be on a computer.
All right, cool. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that.